We've been looking at the pathway to the place of Jehovah Jireh. Last week, we examined the manifestation. We're looking at how we get to that place where God reveals himself, where God is shown, where God manifests himself as your provider. And we talked about the mount of the Lord, it shall be seen, in verse 14. Now, he goes on and says that the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of heaven a second time in verse 15, and he says, and said, By myself I have sworn, says the Lord, for because thou hast done this thing, then thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, that in blessing I will bless thee. Now, the first thing I want to point out here is that in Hebrews it tells us that because he had no greater name, he swore by his own name. Now, I want to ask you, what name did he swear by? Did he swear by Jehovah Sitkanu, our righteousness? Did he swear by Jehovah Shalom, our peace? No, he swore by, in my opinion, he swore by Jehovah Jireh, my provider. So what he did, what we see here is a picture of Abraham who had positioned himself according to the will of God in the place of Jehovah Jireh, so that kicked into the covenant. Are you seeing this? That activated the covenant, and so he says, I swear by my name Jehovah Jireh that I will be Jehovah Jireh on Abraham's behalf. So there comes the manifestation. There comes the being seen in the mount of the Lord. Are you getting that? And it goes on to say this. Because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, that in blessing I will bless thee. Now that's an interesting phrase. In blessing I will bless thee, because it sounds very similar to another phrase that we see back in the 12th chapter of Genesis, the first Abrahamic covenant, where God first speaks to Abraham, and he says, get thee out of thy country and go to a land that I will show thee. And he says, in blessing, he says, I will bless you to be a blessing. I will bless you to be a blessing. That's how he starts out this pathway. Now, here he's saying, in blessing, in verse 17, that in blessing I will bless thee. So I'm going to bless you to be a blessing, so that in blessing I will bless thee. Are you seeing the cycle here? It's I'm going to give seed to the sower. When the sower sows the seed in blessing others, I'm going to be blessing you for blessing others. You see, you can't outgive God. He gives you seed to sow. He gives you, and you're obedient and you sow it. And what happens? Because you sowed that seed, you get another harvest. You get another crop that is greater than what you started to begin with. So that's the cycle of seed time and harvest right here in the covenants of Abraham. Tonight, I want to ask you, where are you in that cycle? Where are you in the cycle of harvest? Has God given you seed? Of course, He's given us everything that we have. Everything that we have comes from God. Now, what are you going to do with that seed? As you're contemplating what you're going to give tonight in tithes and offerings, you need to ask yourself, what am I going to do with my seed? If I eat it, it's gone. But if I sow it, what happens? It says, in blessing, I will bless thee. So bear that in mind, that promise in mind, as you consider your offerings tonight. God bless you.